then she came, and I think she had, I never know how to say it, Apgar, quite low scores. She needed a bit of help with oxygen and stuff, but nothing exciting really. I was super relaxed and content, and oh, here she is. This is her, like, literally just out, all squished up face still. So yeah, that was it. All was well, and I got my shower, and by this point it was like 11ish at night, and I was for going home. Just want to go home. And Boris, which is unlike him, he normally doesn't disagree with me or say no, but he said, Quine, you've had a long day. You know, just, she's all cozy, just stay overnight and I'll come back tomorrow and we'll go home. I was like, okay. So we'd done all of our weird phone calls and everything. We hadn't decided on a name. We both just couldn't really agree. I liked very unusual names, and he liked quite plain names. So we really couldn't agree, and we thought when we saw her we would have a name that just, it didn't. So we kind of, right, we'll leave it, see how we feel when we go home with her. Okay, so he went off and I went to the ward. All good. So then in the ward, she was doing this thing. Well, the nurses said, has she done that lot? I was like, what? Basically, it looked like she was holding her breath. To me, I thought she was taking a big deep breath to really cry. But the nurses were kind of not sure about that. So what they said was, why don't you try and get some sleep? Not that I could, I just was so awake, despite having been awake for like 48 hours or whatever. Why don't you try and get some sleep and we'll take her through with us and keep an eye on her. So by I think like 3-4 in the morning, they popped back and they said, she's just done that thing again. So what we're going to do is we're going to take her down to the special nursery. Just, they'll keep an eye on her, and you can go down and see her in the morning or whatever. So I think I tried to feed her, and anyway, so off she popped, and I was kind of, I texted Boris and said, oh, they're keeping an eye on her. She looks like she's holding her breath, but she's fine. I was so content and happy and relaxed. I just didn't believe there was anything the matter. So nothing was taking me down off of my high. It's just, yeah, it's great. So then in the morning he came in about 7 and we went down to see her, and he was really, what's going on here? And I was like, well, go and speak to them, let's go and see her. So to start with, we were standing over her cot, just kind of basically cooing over her, like, look how beautiful she is and all this kind of thing. And I remember she got the hiccups, and I was like, oh gosh, how cute. And then she was really kicking her legs, but then they kind of started coming up really rhythmically, like at the same time, like a frog. And he was going, what's she doing? And I was like, oh, she's, what is she? And then she went blue. We didn't even get a chance to speak. Bang, boom, alarms. We got removed. People poured in. I don't know where from. She got moved right through to intensive care, and they just sat. We were put outside the nursery. There's a seating area, because there's a few different rooms at the special nursery, and there's a seating area, and we just kind of sat there, and I've got no idea how long, as in 2 minutes, 20 minutes, 2 hours, I don't know. But I just remember barely thinking, breathing, certainly didn't look at Boris, and I know he didn't look at me. There was no touching, there was no crying, There was just waiting. And then eventually somebody, I have very, that's my memory, is just silence and waiting. Someone came through and said that she was okay. And I was just glad that I thought they were going to come through and say she'd gone. So, like that relief, I cannot recall that conversation. I remember we were allowed to go and see her, but I don't remember going to see her or talking, or I don't remember anything. I don't remember what happened after that. But basically, what had happened was that I think she'd had a seizure. They didn't know what caused it, and they would do a lot of tests to find out why. But she'll stay there in the meantime. So that was that. I don't remember what we did or where we went, or I don't remember anything. So there she stayed in intensive care, all alarmed up, things on her feet and all these type of things, in an incubator. So we have no photos of this. It didn't feel right to take photos of her. So I have one that I was in a frame that they give you when you're expressing milk, because that became my focus, because there was nothing I could do for her. It became my focus was just make milk. Like, if not for that, I wouldn't have been able to eat, but I was kind of like fuel feeding, just whatever was put in front of me. I just moved, drank water, make milk. And they give you, funnily enough, they give you a picture and a blanket to express, because the smell of your baby in the picture is supposed to help with your letdown reflex. But I had to put my blanket away because the thought that I found, if I switched off and just like watched telly, I'd look down and my milk would be flowing. I'd have like full bottles. If I did what you're supposed to and looked at my picture and smelled my blanket, my milk would just stop. It was like the stress and the worry of the baby stopped my milk from coming. It was weird. Anyway, but this picture is still very, very special to me, and it's one that I've never replicated selfishly for grandparents or aunties or uncles or any. Nobody has one of these pictures. There's just this one, and it's been in this frame since I got it, because for so long this was all I had of her. So this is mine and mine only, but I will let you see it. It's not very good in a frame, but my little chubby beautiful girl in her incubator. So yeah, that's my one photo of her in the thick of it, really. Although that was before she ended up, she was tube fed because she was medicated to avoid further seizures, and so she would latch on for breastfeeding really well, which always gave me hope. But then as soon as she would latch on, she just like fell off. It was like she just immediately lost strength or what, I don't know. So she could never breastfeed. So we were giving her breast milk through a tube, originally through her nose, and then they moved it to her mouth, which looked a little bit nicer. I don't know, but so yeah, that was that. Loads of tests, and nothing came back. Brain scans, not like EEGs. They tested for infection, and because so many different things can trigger seizures in tiny babies, but nothing. there was no answer. Nobody knew what was going on. So after about a week, kind of stopped we were being spoken to every day, and then it stopped. Somebody had suggested that we're going to do a second brain scan, and I was like, yeah, cool, whatever. Signing loads of papers all the time, signing papers. And a lot of coming round, testing, looking at charts, hitting your nose a lot, testing for reflexes and all this kind of thing. No answers. It was just, alright, so what's happening? And I'll be honest, the whole of the first week, I thought, I am a good girl, I'm a really nice person, I'm a good person, I did everything right, she'll be fine. I really believed it wouldn't happen to me, she'll be fine, because I followed the rules. Even throughout my pregnancy, you expect this baby, and that's how it will be. And afterwards, I kind of felt a bit stupid or arrogant, I suppose. Just, why did it never cross my mind? Why wasn't I ever worried? I felt a bit funny about that. I don't know. It was a strange feeling. But yeah, after this, moving on to week 2, I'm like, oh, maybe she won't be fine, because none of the answers are coming, so it's not anything that's usual or expected, so just what is it? Will we ever get out of here? Like, the longer it took, the more I thought, oh, this is not good. So we started pushing and saying, right, can someone speak to us, because we've been here for ages, and what's happening? So I think it took about 3 days for us to actually pin down someone, and we had to be taken into a room, and a nurse had to come with us. And we were like, what are we getting here? And it's another conversation I don't remember all of. So I'm always concerned that I have hazy details, because I don't want to say anything that's not correct, but my recollection was there was some chat, and then I remember him saying, we have the prognosis, it's not good, it's the worst news. And for Boris and I, the worst news was that she would die. I hope she doesn't mind me saying, but a friend of mine, Allissa, was born in January, and a friend of mine gave birth to a stillborn little girl called Sophie in October. So being aware of that experience, and just, I felt so awful for her. I think that made us always, right from the start, just feel so grateful that Allissa was here. She was here. So yeah, for us, the worst prognosis, that's what we thought. But then he continued and said, the MRI has shown an area of brain damage, cannot be reversed. And because she lacks the most basic of all reflexes, this sucking reflex to feed, it is likely that she will remain unresponsive in a vegetative state. She will appreciate good care, but will be unaware of who gives her that care. So mum, dad, grandparent, nurse, carer. She'll never know you. And she'll remain tube fed. It was also mentioned that it would be likely that she would have she would develop, because they won't diagnose cerebral palsy until the age of 2. It would be likely she would develop cerebral palsy, which would affect her movement. Her muscles would be spasticated. That was a word that really stuck out, bringing back memories of my childhood in the 80s when boys used to do disgusting impressions and people used to say things like spack attack and all this, and just so much to be thrown your way, and we were just, again, the way you think you'd react, well, the way I thought I would have reacted was not the way I did react, because I would have thought, faced with all of those things, I would have broke down and absolutely been inconsolable. Like, I don't know if I'd watched too many soaps or too many films, but neither of us behaved like that or reacted like that. We just were like super practical. We were devastated. Like, there's nothing in the world besides the loss, I imagine, of a child that can just take the wind from you. Just, yeah, it's the most awful thing I've ever heard in my life, was being told that she'll never know me. But luckily, my husband is not a rule follower, and he is not a do-as-you're-told kind of boy, and I have learned from him over the years. But that day, I would have accepted everything I was told. He did not. He went, right, okay, she's brain damaged. What's stopping us from going home then? Right, well, she'll remain on medication to control her seizures. Right, fine. You'll need to learn how to change the tubes or whatever. It was all about feeding. And he was just like, aye, she can take a bottle. And they were like, no, we don't believe she has, she can't feed. And he says, aye, that's breastfeeding. It's too hard for her. She's too tired with all that drugs. She'll take a bottle. When you feed her in her tube, she goes, and she did. And sometimes we gave it a dummy, and we both did think she can suck. It was just like, the only feeding method we ever tried was breastfeeding, because that was so important. And so yeah, but yeah, my Boris just argued, and I sat kind of silent, and then the next thing I knew, he was up and out, and I think I got so off I go, Boris, what you doing? Storms into the unit that she was in. Can I get a bottle? Well, I thought, and there was something mentioned about breastfeeding. He was like, I don't give a fuck about breastfeeding. Give me a bottle. So we got a bottle with a free flow teat. I don't remember if he used formula or breast milk or what. He picked it up and he fed her. And she took the whole lot. Burped her. and just said, right, we'll go home then. And they were like, oh, well, now you can't just go home because, you know, and he was just like, we're going home. Well, but just because she took one feed, she might not manage the next. And he was like, right, well, we'll stay for the next feed. Get those tubes out. We should leave them in. So she had to have a couple of feeds with her tubes in. Then they agreed. I think she had another one, so 2. I do have a picture. I do have one of her. Can you see? With her wee tube. So she had a couple of feeds with her tubes, and then there's this whole leaving procedure from the special nursery. You're supposed to spend 2 nights in a it's like a room that's made to look like a home just next door. I've never even seen that room. I've only heard of it because as soon as our tubes were out, look at him. I'm just looking at him. My hero, my husband, just says, right, I'm gonna get a car seat. We're going home. And I was shitting myself. I was like, she's got monitors and alarms, and what if she stops breathing and I'm sleeping? And I did not sleep for like years. But I was panicking. I was freaking out. He was just like, I've had enough of this shit. Let's get home. So, look at him. And later that day, we went home.